is Next? What is Next is a very educative program on GTV, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana. What is Next is asking questions about contemporary challenges confronting us as a people. But in the process, we look for people with accumulated wisdom, people who are thought leaders of our country at the moment. And we just get closer to them in our effort to harvest wisdom for them to help us answer such questions confronting us. And today, just by grace, we are blessed to have a lady of many parts. She's very academic, she is administrator, and she is also pushing women issues in this country and a very advocate on society's issues confronting all of us. And today I'm happy, so excited to introduce to you my guest who reflect on the subject, setting up national priorities. And the lady I'm so excited to introduce to you is Dr. Esther Ofei-Aboagye. On set, Mama Esther, allow me to call you Auntie Esther.
Yes, indeed.
So, Auntie Esther, welcome to What is Next.
Thank you very much, Papa.
You are a lady of many parts. You've been a lecturer at GIMPA. You've been a director at the Institute of Local Government Studies. And at the moment, you chair Star Ghana Foundation, and we can continue and continue. But just help my audience and my viewers to know a bit of you. Who is Esther Ofei-Aboagye?
Papa, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me. Esther Ofei-Aboagye is a Ghanaian teacher, a mother, born of humble parents, 2 teachers at Abetifikwewu, and I'm the oldest of their 5 children. So basically, that is who Esther Ofei-Aboagye is. Like you said, I've had a career in teaching and learning. I spent a number of years at GIMPA. Then I went to help to run the newly created Institute of Local Government Studies in 1999. I left the institute in 2015, and currently I am doing a number of things, interesting things, including working with civil society.
Yes, and yes, normally when people hear about you, especially young people, it's like you woke up one morning and became Esther Ofei-Aboagye. Are there values that have kept you growing up in matters of academics, your professional work, working with civil society, as you mentioned? Are there real values that have kept you going?
But yes, there are values that have kept me going. These values were instilled in me very, very young. My parents were people who believed in hands-on parenting. They were very interested in every aspect of our lives. They didn't have a lot of money, but they made sure that we visited libraries, we did our homework, we did what was expected of us. So some of the values they've instilled over the years include self-discipline, include respect for others, include the fear of God, and also the need to apply oneself diligently to everything that one does. So growing up, the parents instilled this, but over the years, I have seen it and admired it in a number of people. I am guided by a number of anchor texts. Papa, as you know, I'm a Christian woman, and Esther 4:14 has guided me over the years. Who knows if it was for a time like this that you were brought to this position? So those are some of the values that guide my life. I believe that I'm one of those to whom a lot has been given, and therefore a lot is required.
You mentioned your parents, but on our platform, What is Next? Are there 1 or 2 people that you will want to affirm, just to say thank you to?
Yes, indeed. But again, I'm very privileged. A number of people have invested in my life. And I particularly want to mention a few, some of whom have passed on. The late Mrs. Emily Harley, for instance, the late Reverend Rose Ampofo. They showed a lot of interest in my development. As for me, I've had mentors and role models of both male and female gender on both sides of the equation. I have learned a lot also from the various professors, various accomplished people I have worked with. I want to put up for admiration this afternoon my former boss, Professor S.N. Wood. I was privileged. I've also worked under a few other people from whom I have learned a lot. I want to acknowledge some other people. They may not want me to mention them on stage, so I think the ones I've mentioned are adequate. Yes.
Viewers, this is What is Next? And I'm in conversation with Dr. Esther Ofei-Aboagye. We are reflecting upon setting up national priorities. Now, Auntie Esther, is there any direct relationship between how we set up national priorities and national development?
Papa, there should be a linkage between setting up of national priorities and national development. National development is intended to achieve the aspirations and the needs of the people that are in a particular locality of a particular group. And therefore, the priorities must be known and must be clear and must be heartfelt in order to design programs around these priorities. Because the plan is a journey somewhere, or national development is a change management process. When you develop, you manage change to a better quality of life. And you manage change for a better quality of life for a certain people whom it's intended to serve or intended to bless or intended to improve in such a way that their basic needs are met. They have an incentive to improve themselves, to enhance the quality of life, to participate in the process of making things better and leave a legacy or an environment in which their children can also thrive and contribute to the future. Therefore, if you do not have national priorities clear, your national development direction cannot be clear. So there's an integral linkage because the development process should be about realizing national priorities.
And what about the issue of determining national priorities? Do we have models that we work with, or do we have people who wake up in the morning and decide that for me, this is what you need, this must be your priority, so I'm giving it to you? So what are the key determinants, the models that must be applied when we come to setting up national priorities?
National priorities should be determined with the people whom they are intended to serve in view. The people for whom these priorities are being identified are those who can set out their felt needs and indicate that these are our preferences, these are our priorities. So that any process to determine national priorities must be able to map as much of the priorities of the people as possible, articulate or aggregate them so that we can have a set of common basic needs. We realize, or the world has come to a realization of certain fundamental human rights or basic needs that every human being, every citizen of a country is entitled to. And so that national development process must take these into account. However, you cannot determine something for somebody, however well-intentioned it is. But the practice has been that, we've seen these people, what they need. If you ask them, they will say they just want this. They don't know much, so let us determine it for them. Normally, when things are determined for people, the process is faster. The process is less time people in authority, politicians, policymakers may be tempted to go that route of what they think people need. It is very important to get to the people and let them indicate to you what they want and how they want it. Very often, the assumption is that the people are illiterate, or they are not educated, or they are not exposed to Western models, standards of living, and therefore they can't determine what they want. They can. The role that policymakers, public servants, politicians must play is to provide an opportunity for these people to say what it is they want, what they need, what their preferences are, to give them the options that they are to choose from, and to faithfully try to translate these into national development plans. In the implementation process, the people must be involved in monitoring progress. And at a review stage, the people should be able to say qualitatively, this is what we set out to achieve, and we've actually achieved it. And at the end of it all, those to whom a responsibility has been given, politicians, public servants, leaders, opinion leaders, representatives, have to go back to their constituents, go back to the people who sent them to say this is what we have done. You see, the people are first of all the owners of the mandate, so that they are the people who sent you. The people are also your clients, because it's on their behalf that you are managing public resources, natural resources. So they have to be reported to. And the people are beneficiaries of the public services that are provided. And therefore, they must have a say in how these services are packaged. But very often, attitudes are a bit paternalistic. Sometimes people in public office are cynical, that as for people, they will take anything they'll get. That should not be the case.
I'll come back to the mandate that you mentioned is a people's mandate. But we have global developmental goals, like Sustainable Development Goals by the United Nations. We have the Agenda 2063, or the Africa We Want by the African Union, etc. Now, how do global goals feed into or inform the setting up of national priorities?
Increasingly, we realize the importance of, ensuring that the people on whose behalf we plan are reflected in our plans. And in Ghana, our constitution dictates, or our constitution provides, a framework for the national development planning process. It prescribes the establishment of the National Development Planning Commission. So the National Development Planning Commission has that responsibility for advising the president and his team, and for providing a framework for national planning at all levels, so that at the national level, for ministry departments and agencies, there's a framework. At the regional level, there's a setting in which local level plans are pulled together and harnessed or integrated. Now, the system, Papa, I'm taking my time to describe the system so that we understand it. So the National Development Planning Commission is expected to provide the guidelines, oversee the processes, monitor and evaluate all of these plans, provide us with the standards of planning. So they provide us a framework for the medium-term development plans for the sectors as well as the local authorities, or the district medium-term development plans. Now, the National Development Planning System Act 480 requires that planning processes are also bottom-up. Whilst the guidelines are provided, there must be bottom-up processes where at the community level, at the district level, they are all aggregated to form the plans. So in the planning process, what the National Development Planning Commission has done is that it has taken up these international commitments. First, the Millennium Development Goals, and then the Sustainable Development Goals and the Agenda 2063. It has looked at all of these plans from a country perspective, so that what it means, I mean, if they talk about life under the sea, I mean, that particular goal, or they look at providing decent work, or they look at institutional or the cities that we want. What does it mean for Ghana? What does it mean for our development? What are the priorities? So they pick up these, the SDGs and the Agenda 2063. Look at what they indicate. Look at the targets, because these plans have indicators, goal indicators, along with them, the targets and indicators, and then craft out what works for Ghana and integrate them into the planning guidelines. Again, a number of the sectors have their partner institutions and know what goals affect them. For instance, a goal around food will have a partner ministry in the Ministry of Food and Agriculture. A goal around gender, for instance, will have a partner in the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. So they too, the ministries and agencies and departments, also have a responsibility for looking at these international goals and teasing out the areas that are most important to Ghana. Then on another level, civil society organizations, NGOs and others have their international systems and processes where they are also alert to the commitments that are required of nations. So they also have identified their priorities and their goals in line with these requirements, which they will do their advocacy about. So all of these come together, and then the National Development Planning Commission works with the ministry departments and agencies, works with the civil society organizations to formulate the goals and the standards. So having done this, you will realize that with the SDGs, there's a whole process of an SDG coordinating committee whose secretariat is at the National Development Planning Commission. It's composed of all of these entities, key ministers, key public officers, and also a civil society coalition on the SDGs, who work in tandem to ensure the realization of the SDGs and the Agenda 2063. Having said that, you will also recall that His Excellency the President is also an AU champion, and therefore there is a secretariat in the presidency to assist the realization of this responsibility that he has. And they also work in tandem with this coordinating structure that I've referred to. Finally, in the SDG arrangements, there are opportunities for countries to report on their performance. So they have a process called the Voluntary National Reporting Process, the VNR process. So at the high-level meeting, a country will opt or volunteer to report. And last year, 2019, Ghana did that. So you go and track and report on the extent of achievement of the SDGs as you've done. Civil society also took the opportunity to prepare a complementary report alongside the voluntary national reporting process, which they also shared, so that there's a holistic picture of where Ghana is going with in relation to these goals.
Yeah, but Esther, whatever reports will suggest as the direction Ghana we are moving towards, there is a notion out there that our national priorities and developmental efforts are vote-driven. Is that a fair assessment?
Papa, if that is said, it wouldn't surprise me. Why it wouldn't surprise me is that political parties, in their quest for political power or to be able to form a government, put up their manifestos. And in the manifestos, they make all manner of promises. And increasingly, we are in the era of sound bites all over the world. You know, politicians have some sound bites and certain statements that they make which catch the attention of the people, and they get voted on that basis. So you'll hear a politician in office saying, the people of Ghana voted for me to do A, B, C, D, E, you know. And then the jingles follow you, and we are entering political season. You hear this and that, all kinds of jingles on that score. So politicians will come into office delivering or purporting to deliver on these promises that they made rather than development goals. Very often the promises do touch on some of the needs and aspirations of Ghanaians, but sometimes they deal with symptoms, so that the structural change that our nation needs to make sure that every Ghanaian child has a certain basic set of entitlements and opportunities. Every Ghanaian man has a right to fulfilling employment, shelter, an opportunity to do work that inspires and capacitates him. We haven't dealt with those fundamentals. It is true that people have short-term needs, but they also have long-term developmental requirements. And it's important for a good government to be able to balance between meeting the short-term enjoyments, which will give you the hey, hey, ha, ha, the enjoyment, the shouting, the running after you, as well as the long-term implications that will not compromise the people and their children. So to come back to the issues that you have said, people, and our people too, I worry that our people are also becoming increasingly cynical, that politicians every 4 years they'll come saying A, B, C, D, E, F. And so if that's what you want to hear, that is what we will say. If I know some women in some villages who have their T-shirt of every political party, every political party. So if it's your group that is coming, they wear your T-shirt. After the election, they wear it to their farm and continue with what they are doing. So in essence, as a nation, if we are very serious, we need to articulate the key drivers that will transform this nation and its economy, that will optimize the natural resources that God has given us, and that will create a future in which our children can dare to hope and dare to compete with the rest of the world.
Now, you mentioned the National Development Planning Commission earlier on, and you have been a key member of the commission also. Is there a relationship when it comes to developing manifestos and the soundbite you mentioned earlier on? Is there any relationship between the National Development Planning Commission and the development of manifestos that are supposed to articulate the priorities of the people?
Baba, I am not aware of any formal relationship. I would expect serious research departments and manifesto writing committees of the political parties to refer to the National Development Planning Commission for reports on performance, trends, where the needs and gaps are, because that is what the National Development Planning Commission is supposed to do. Every year there's an annual reporting, an annual report, a preparation of an annual progress report, which can help to track where the gaps and concerns are, so that I would expect them to refer to them and get that technical advice to shape their manifestos. Again, I would expect, because every serious political party should have a research department, and then definitely there will be a manifesto writing committee. I'd expect them to go to the National Development Planning Commission and get that information. I would also expect them to look at the research work that institutions like ISE, and then also what the CSOs generate, the Afrobarometer of CDD and others, to pick up what the key issues are. However, whether there's a formal relationship to that effect, beyond referring to their documentation or running the manifestos by them, I don't think there's any such thing. Already, political parties keep their manifestos tightly under their beds or in their drawers for fear that somebody will steal the contents and hijack it and to or use it in their documents or try to anticipate what they've done. So they don't put their manifestos in the public domain early. Because you see, Papa, if a manifesto is setting out the message you want to tell Ghanaians about how you want to change their lives, it should come early, so that we can digest them and ask proper questions. If you say you are going to do A, B, C, D, E for me, when is it going to come? In what form is it going to come? How much is going to be involved? And where are you going to get the money? These are the questions you should ask around issues. In other countries, I do know that in some countries, these documents are run by the civil servants also. I mean, run by them, not that they drive it, but they have access to it so that they can begin to do scenario setting. So that if your party comes into power, these would be the implications for governance and administration. But here it is hidden like a pot of gold, and then it is brought out just a bit. They just give you a little bit to see, have you seen A, B, C, D, E, F? And it doesn't give the Ghanaian a basis to analyze and unpack these things as thoroughly as they should to make informed decisions.
US, this is what is next. And I am in conversation with Dr. Esther Ofei-Aboagye. And we are reflecting on setting up national priorities. And Esther, earlier on you mentioned the mandate as the people's mandate. Now, we have market women who are concerned about sanitation in the market. We have young farmers in Akumadan who are worried about the regular growth of their tomatoes. We have elderly people who are worried about meaningful pension, and we can continue. Now, how should such individual, minority, community concerns find their way into the setting up of national priorities? And if I may even stretch it, the manifestos of the various political parties?
Papa, ideally, all these voices have a number of channels of percolating to the top. Ideally, that is why we have a decentralized system of governance, so that the local authorities should, in their needs assessment, if they are adequately consultative, and if their representatives do their work well, being the assembly members, these issues and concerns would arise or would be raised. Ideally, the National Development Planning Commission and its partner agencies at the subnational levels, the regional planning coordinating units, the district planning coordinating units, in their review, monitoring, and evaluation, should be able to identify these as priorities and bring them up. Ideally, that is why we have members of parliament to do advocacy on their people's behalf. All of these issues that you mentioned, the market women and sanitation in Akumadan, young people, tomato gluts, older people, and pensions, are dealt with at various levels. For instance, there should be sanitation policies at the national level. And then the district assemblies should also have their sanitation policies, bylaws, programs, and other facilitating instruments in place. As a nation, how are we going to deal with plastic bags? As a nation, what are we doing by recycling, regeneration, and other things? As a nation, what is our policy around waste disposal, electronic waste disposal? I mean, if you are coming down the road from the brewery down towards Obechabe Lamte Circle, Papa, right now, dead fridges, dead air conditioners, it's a frightening view. So we must have a national policy as to how we deal with all of this. Then it comes to the responsibility of the district assemblies to have viable solutions to the sanitation problems within the districts. You mentioned market women. Assemblies make a lot of money from markets and market tolls. It's one of the most visible and most sustainable ways in which assemblies raise revenue. So it is imperative that they put the money back into these markets, ensuring that those who are generating this money, whether it's the market women or the truck pushers or the vehicles that bring the food, have an enabling and salubrious environment in which to work, a healthy environment in which to conduct business for us. Whether assemblies are able to plow that money back into the markets is another question. Therefore, it's important that the assembly members are able to articulate these concerns to the assemblies in their district planning processes, because they are supposed to do bottom-up as well as public hearings, which are supposed to be very participatory, to elicit these concerns. But not only elicit them, but be seen to be taking action on them. Our people become fatigued. They will tell you that, every day they come and ask us these questions, but we don't see anything happening. Every day they come and talk to us, but we don't see the results. So when you invite them to even participate in some of these public hearings and so on, there's the opportunity cost of their time, because the time that is sitting there to talk to you, she can be selling or can be on her farm or something. Also, the assembly members need to be adequately resourced to be able to hold these consultative processes. Go to them, solicit their input. When they go to the assembly to decide something, give them feedback. So the system must work. But apart from the supply side of it, the demand side must work. The Local Government Act 936, the new 936, makes extensive provisions for participation. If you're looking about section 40 to 48, which makes participation and engagement an obligation on the assembly. We need to assess the effectiveness, because sometimes if you are assessing processes, did the meeting take place? It took place. Did the public hearing take place? It took place. Who came? What happened? What did they say? Because sometimes some of these public hearings are lectures. They are lectures from the people in public office. The opportunities for questioning. Sometimes because you say they should have people there, a token market woman, there's a token that they'll come and ask very nice, tame questions and go away. So that the accountability mechanism, the feedback, whether people even know complaints mechanisms, grievances, whether the people know that they can come up to the assembly and engage officials there, becomes an issue. We also have a long colonial baggage of people being afraid of government. I won't say it. My people say, you see, so that baggage of people not seeing government as an instrument to serve them and to support them is still there. We need to eradicate that. It's also very important that these people who see themselves as individual voices, who may not be able to effect change on their own, are facilitated to make their voices heard. Apart from the assembly members, there are key people who can assist them. We can talk about civil society organizations, but we can also talk about faith leaders, because Ghanaians are very religious people, and they believe and they trust their faith leaders. We can talk about traditional authorities. They also, in many places, have a lot of moral authority and can speak and demand certain performance on behalf of their people. So it is imperative that we encourage, we advocate, we educate, and facilitate our people to take up that mandate which is theirs.
And earlier on you talk about sound bites that
Yes.
in this era, when we are in the political environment, you hear sound bite almost every day. But tomato glut in Akumadan can never be one of such sound bite.
No.
You mentioned sachet water. It's difficult to make sachet water a soundbite. I'm waiting to hear if any of them will use sanitation in the marketplace to even urinate by market women, even though you said earlier on that they collect a lot of money. But I'm waiting to hear if any of the parties will use sanitation in our market. Snake bite by our farmers, what people are going through in our rural communities as part of the soundbite. How do we get the years of political party, that what young people who are into farming, agriculture, what they are going through must also become part of your soundbite.
Papa, there is an increasing tendency, which I think is very interesting, because ideally we should be able to invite those who are seeking our mandate to tell us more about what they want to do for us. But what civil society is increasingly doing is that they are preparing in what you would call sector manifestos. You remember that in about 2004, a coalition of women's organizations facilitated and coordinated by Abantu for Development came out with the Women's Manifesto, which was a series of demands in about 10 areas of what Ghanaian women have to say on each issue, on various issues, making there was a bit of situation analysis, what their needs are, like the women in Akumadan facing glut and post-harvest losses, getting their food to the markets, inimical sociocultural practices and so on. So they assemble this, do the situation analysis, and a series of demands follow. Other CSOs over the years have followed suit. I've seen some in NLG. I've seen this year, for instance, the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition and the Ghana Integrity Initiative did an anti-corruption manifesto. I know also that CSOs have come together with the help of UNICEF to do a series of demands on social protection. Finally, I know that CDD also did a number of papers to put together. They call it the Manifesto Project. What they do is that they assemble a list of priorities, such as the ones you've listed, which may never find the light of day. I mean, for instance, in the Anti-Corruption Manifesto, for instance, they identified areas in which Ghana's laws fall short in terms of corruption, or defining what corruption means. Again, they looked at an area where they unpacked wrongdoing, like where public officials also use the proceeds of ill-gotten gains and all of these kinds of things. The point I'm making is that they go into some level of detail, and then they make it available to the political parties and say, here, this is what we have assembled from the people of Ghana. This is what they are interested in. This is what their priorities are. This is where they see the gaps. Use it for formulating your manifesto. Now, the next step is to see the extent to which the political parties have utilized some of these demands. So the point I'm making here is that this has become one way in which the felt needs. I mean, definitely something like sanitation and markets is a visible, frightening, smelly problem. So it will come up. It will be evident. It will, come up. Employment for young people. It will come up. It's visible. It's frightening. The youth world is a topical issue the world over. But the detail and the way in which it to be done so it will be sustainable, so that it is not a knee-jerk reaction. You hear this today, and overnight you rush there without any policy backing it, no clear budget backing it. When there isn't a clear budget backing it, it cannot be sustained. So that it becomes a flash in the pan, it becomes a sound bite, it becomes an exciting thing that has been done, and then over the years, it just fades away in an unsustainable process. It hasn't transformed anything. So this work that CSOs are doing by bringing these issues to the fore is extremely important. And it is imperative that we look for some of these not so, excuse me to use, not so shiny, not so flashy problems because these are things that impact on the day-to-day lives of people.
And Esther, you mentioned manifesto that various civil society groups are trying to work on, that they find their way into the bigger picture. But I want you to do advocacy for, as I mentioned earlier on, young people who are farmers in only Akomada, but let me still stay at the glut. It's somebody in Sawam watermelon. This is and they don't have strong voice and market women the sanitation where to urinate. Some of them urinate in their shops.
Yes.
And respectable
Yes.
women, and they have to carry it.
Yes.
Please, on their behalf, such voices, look straight into this camera.
Yes,
and
sir.
talk to the various political parties that such may not be the sound bites, things that attract, but they must be heard and their voices must be considered. So just talk to, we may not know who is watching,
Yes,
but
indeed.
kindly talk to the various political parties that women in Ghana are crying and such voices must be heard.
Right. Ladies and gentlemen, the women of Ghana have contributed a lot to the development and sustenance of this nation. A lot of them are in our markets. A lot of them work in circumstances that really do not encourage or would put fear into the hearts of many brave people. When they recount the difficulties that they have in the markets, apart from cleanliness, apart from a place where they can conveniently take care of their bodily requirements, like going to ease themselves, they are afraid of crime, they are afraid of theft, they are afraid of being taken advantage of. A lot of them don't have places that are stores, safe stores to operate from. A lot of them run challenges of having to cook in their stalls and run the risk of occupational hazards and dangers. We want to plead. I do know that markets are the responsibility of district assemblies. But if we have governments that set standards that these assemblies are to meet and will monitor, will name and shame, will require performance, will require a working environment that fosters this productivity, I believe that the women of Ghana will be deeply appreciative. We want to also be able to take advantage of technology, give them the information they need about where there's productivity, where they can get their goods, where they can find markets, where they can carry their money safely. It is very important in this era where mobile money and other means of carrying money have improved. We continue to enhance their access and continue to ensure that their investments are kept safe. Saying this, I also want to do advocacy on behalf of the young people who are interested in agriculture and agribusiness. As a nation, we haven't made agriculture attractive to our young people. We haven't encouraged them to go into agriculture enough. It is still the back-breaking, unattractive undertaking whose image has not been held by a number of factors. Yet we need them there. We need them to help us bring agriculture into the 21st century. We need them to be able to have mechanization, to have irrigation, to be able to contribute not only to the food security of our people, but also to earn incomes, add value, work along the agricultural value chain, invest in agribusiness, processing, cutting down post-harvest losses, and also creating a viable form of employment for themselves and their children. We need to find viable solutions to this persisting problem of post-harvest losses, glut, as Papa identified it. It is something that we can do. But very often our initiatives have not been sustained. Very often we haven't looked at how to reach the smaller producers. I want to plead that we pay careful attention to these aspects.
Viewers, this is what is next on GTV, the authentic and trusted voice of Ghana. Auntie Esther, has the Ghanaian voter been taken for granted?
Papa, the Ghanaian voter could be better served. The Ghanaian voter could be better served. First of all, the Ghanaian voter needs to be accounted to. People should take time off to come and give account of their stewardship. It is not every 4 years when you want their vote that you go by and try to win their votes. You try to buy their votes. Ghanaian voters deserve to be treated with respect. We shouldn't be thought of as people who can be bought, who can be induced to vote one way or another. Ghanaian voters deserve to be told the truth. Ghanaian voters deserve to be listened to go to every nook and cranny, to be able to see that the issues that they raised have been taken into account. There shouldn't be situations where some people feel left out or underserved or not taken into account because they live in villages, because they are old, because they are young, or because they are not educated. So a lot more can be done to recognize Ghanaian voters as the source of power that puts people in office.
A lot more can be done to recognize the Ghanaian voter as the source of power. Viewers, we want to end here, but next week, same time, God willing, the Constitutional Review Committee recommended strongly that the Constitution of Ghana must move from a political constitution to a developmental constitution. And I will, God willing, want to engage Auntie Esther to help us unpack what it means to move a nation's constitution from political constitution to a developmental, the rationale, and how do we get there, and who must hear and get us there. Till then, my name is Kwabena Opuni-Frimpong. May God bless this dear nation of ours and make Ghana great and strong. We are in a moment of setting up national priorities. It's a collective responsibility. Get involved. See you next week, same time. God bless you.